Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. I reached for the necklace hook and my fingers hit air. For a second I thought I missed the spot somehow. Then my brain caught up and my stomach dropped hard. This is Emma, 31 and already in trouble that night. The hook hangs inside my closet right above my dresser. That necklace always sat there waiting and I never moved it. I let other things slide, but not that piece ever. So when my hand closed on nothing, I just froze there. I already felt wrong before I even looked for him. I walked out to the hallway and called for Mark once. My voice came out lighter than I felt, which annoyed me. He answered from the kitchen, sounding weirdly cheerful about something. In hindsight, that brightness should have told me everything. Back then, I just thought he had a good day. I checked the small dish on top, no necklace there either. I opened my jewelry box fast and sifted through familiar shapes. Everything else glinted back at me, just not what I wanted. I even checked the floor as if it jumped off by itself. By then my heart pounded hard enough to make me feel stupid. I walked into the kitchen trying to look normal and failing badly. Mark stood at the stove, humming some tune under his breath. He glanced up and smiled like I was his favorite person alive. That smile used to calm me down, this time it felt wrong. I leaned on the doorframe and forced my voice steady for him. "Hey Mark, have you seen my necklace today at all?" I kept my tone casual, like I was asking about socks. "Not that I know, why are you asking about it?" He finally turned around and leaned on the counter watching me. His eyes flicked over my face like he was testing something. Back then I thought he was just confused about the question. Now I know he was measuring how far he could push me. I shrugged and tried to sound bored instead of wired and jumpy. "Forget it, I probably left it in my car or something." The doorbell rang before he could answer anything else and saved him. He pushed off the counter quick and wiped his hands on a towel. "That will be Lily, don't stress about jewelry right now." He walked away before I could object and my chest tightened again. I followed him because every step suddenly felt like walking toward a test. I pulled the front door open and Lily stood there grinning wide. She stepped inside before I could even say hi or breathe properly. My eyes went straight to the chain around her neck without permission. It shone in the hallway light in a way I knew too well. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed down to that tiny clasp at her throat. Every mark matched, even the little scratch near the latch I always notice. I did not need to touch it to be sure, my body already knew. Heat rushed up my chest so fast I almost swayed where I stood. Lily tossed her hair back and the pendant bounced like it belonged there. I forced my mouth into a smile that felt like it might crack. "New necklace that looks kind of familiar to me." My voice came out strained and higher than usual, which she noticed instantly. She glanced down, fingers brushing the pendant like it was some movie moment. "You like it?" Mark surprised me with it this week. She looked pleased with herself and I felt something in me go cold. I looked over her shoulder at Mark and he avoided my eyes. He was right behind her holding a bottle like he was hosting a show. My stomach clenched so hard I thought I might throw up there. He gave me that same easy smile from the kitchen a minute earlier. "Told you she would love it, right?" In that moment my brain scrambled for any explanation that did not hurt. Maybe he borrowed it to show her, maybe he planned to give it back. Maybe I forgot some conversation where I agreed to something generous like that. That's the worst part looking back, how fast I blamed myself instead. I swallowed all the questions crowding my throat and welcomed her inside anyway. We moved toward the dining room and she kept talking about her day. Every few seconds her hand brushed the pendant like she enjoyed the weight. I heard her words but could not repeat a single one now. All I saw was that thin chain moving against her throat with every laugh. I took my usual seat at the table and felt like a stranger there. "So Emma, big plans this weekend or just work and Netflix again?" Lily laughed as she asked and leaned her elbows on the table. I stabbed a piece of chicken and kept my eyes away from her chest. "I was going to wear my necklace actually, the one that vanished today." Her smile faltered for half a second and Mark kicked my shin underfoot. Pain shot up my leg and snapped me back into the role of hostess. I cleared my throat and added a laugh that sounded nothing like me. "Just kidding, guess I misplaced it and it will turn up." Lily relaxed again and launched into some story about her coworker and a breakup. I nodded in the right places while heat crawled up my neck anyway. By the time dessert hit the table, I had made a quiet promise. I would not confront her tonight, but I would get answers later. Mark kept the conversation flowing like a talk show host, dodging any serious topic. Every time my gaze drifted to the necklace, he cracked another joke at random. Looking back, I can see he knew exactly what he had done already. When Lily finally left with a hug and a wave, my jaw ached. I had been clenching it for hours without realizing, and my head throbbed. The house went quiet in a way that made every clock tick feel loud. Mark started stacking plates like it was any other Friday night cleanup. I stood in the doorway again and knew this silence would not last. I waited until the water ran in the sink and then I spoke. No fake smile left on my face this time and no soft voice. "We need to talk about the necklace, and you better not lie." Even as the words left my mouth, I knew something bigger was sitting behind this. I had no idea yet that this was the first thread pulling everything loose. The water stopped running the moment I finished that sentence. He stayed facing the sink like I was behind a locked door. His shoulders rose once, then dropped, and that tiny movement annoyed me. When he finally turned, his face was already arranged for damage control. "You are still on that little thing." He dried his hands slowly like we had all night for this. "It is just jewelry, you are scaring yourself for nothing." My nails dug into my palms so I would not interrupt yet. He already sounded bored, and that scared me more than anger. "It is not just jewelry, and you know that." I stepped closer until the edge of the counter pressed my hip. "Where did you get the chain Lily wore tonight?" My voice shook a little, but the words came out clear enough. This time I refused to pretend I did not see the truth. He leaned back against the counter, arms folding across his chest. "Honestly, I figured you would be happy someone enjoys it." He watched my reaction like I was a kid with a tantrum. "You barely used the thing, it was gathering dust in there." There it was already, the shift from answer to judgment. "You took it without asking." I heard how flat I sounded and almost did not recognize myself. That piece was left to me, not to us, me. My throat burned and I had to pause to swallow once. "I did not lend it to anyone, and you know that." He rolled his eyes and gave this tiny snort that lit me up. "Come on, we are married, it is all shared at this point." He flicked a hand toward the hallway like our life proved his point. "You do not get to hoard fancy things while my sister struggles." The guilt bomb landed right where he wanted, but it also enraged me. "Do not pull her problems into this to dodge what you did." I shook my head because words felt dangerously close to spilling over. "You want to help her, fine, but not with something that is mine." I forced each word out steady, one by one, like pushing heavy boxes. "Why did you not at least ask before you handed it over?" He pushed off the counter and closed the space between us. His voice dropped lower, smoothing out like he was soothing a client. "Because I knew you would overthink it and say no anyway." He shrugged like the choice had been obvious and almost noble. "Sometimes I just have to make the kind choice and move on." That line hit harder than anything else so far. Kind for who? I actually laughed, sharp and ugly, and it startled even me. "Kind to her, sure, but cruel to me and convenient for you." I could feel the argument tilting, and not in his favor this time. He stepped back then just a little, eyes narrowing the way they do. "You are really going to talk about cruelty over a necklace?" His hands opened and closed once, like he held an invisible script. "You watched her tonight, you saw how happy she was with it." His voice softened again, but the words dug in like little hooks. I hated that I had seen that happiness, and he knew it. That is the part he always targets, the place I care most. If she knew it was stolen from our house, she would choke on it. My chest tightened as I imagined that exact conversation tomorrow. "You put me in that position, not her and not the necklace." He moved toward the table, pulling out a chair with a harsh scrape. "So what do you actually want from me right now?" He sank down, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor between us. "You want me to walk in there tomorrow and rip it off her neck?" The picture he painted sounded brutal, and he knew that too. "Yes." The word surprised both of us with how fast it came out. I took another breath and did not backpedal this time. "Yes, I want you to tell her it was a mistake and bring it home." Silence stretched, thick and stubborn, daring either of us to move. He looked up slowly, like I had suggested something obscene. "Do you have any idea how insane that would look?" He laughed once, short and, Humorless then shook his head. She has been in a rough spot and I finally did something nice. Again with the saint routine, like I was attacking charity itself. You did not buy her anything. I kept my tone even because shouting would give him an easy out. You walked into our bedroom, opened my stuff, and helped yourself. My heart pounded so hard my vision pulsed at the edges. If a stranger did that, you would call it theft without blinking. He stared at me for a long beat, jaw working. God, you always jump straight to the harshest label. He dragged a hand through his hair and let out a loud breath. I used something from our home for our family, that is all. There it was, the word "our" doing way too much work. I leaned on the back of a chair to keep my hands still. Stop hiding behind that word like it makes everything fair. Every sentence out of his mouth rubbed my nerves raw. I am not your storage unit, I am not your silent donor. My voice dropped low and I watched that actually rattle him. He stood again, faster this time, knocking the chair back a little. This is exactly what I mean, you get possessive about everything. He pointed toward the bedroom like the crime scene waited there. It is always your stuff, your rules, your precious heirlooms. He spat that last word out like it tasted ridiculous in his mouth. I almost fired back something mean just to hurt him. Instead, I gripped the chair tighter and forced myself to slow down. That word matters because it means connection, not price. He'd crawled up my neck and I did not care anymore. You cut that connection to play hero and you never even warned me. He scoffed and turned away, pacing a short line near the table. What do you want, for me to beg for forgiveness on the floor? His arms swung wide for emphasis, almost hitting the chair he left. I messed up your little plan to keep it hidden forever, okay? He glanced back, eyes bright with anger now, looking for weakness. You did not mess up a plan, you broke trust. The word hung there heavy, and I watched him flinch despite himself. He recovered fast, but I caught it and it kept me talking. Tonight I asked if you had seen it, and you lied without blinking. That moment from earlier replayed in my head, now in ugly detail. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, chewing on something. When he spoke, the volume dropped, but the edge stayed sharp. I lied because I knew you would blow everything out of proportion. He rubbed his forehead like I was the problem, melting his patience. The second you noticed it gone, you made this about betrayal. You made it about betrayal the second you hid what you did. My throat felt raw, but stopping now would haunt me later. If you honestly believed it was fine, you would have told me first. The logic landed between us like a brick neither of us wanted to lift. His eyes shifted away for the first time, and that told me enough. I walked past him, heart hammering, and grabbed my phone from the counter. Call her tonight and tell her you need it back tomorrow. My thumb hovered over his contact, ready to press and hand it over. If you will not do it, I will right now. That was the first moment he actually looked worried. He moved quick, closing his hand around my wrist before I dialed. Do not drag her into our argument just because you are upset. His grip tightened, not painful yet, but firm enough to underline the words. You are not thinking straight, sleep on it and we will talk again. He tried to sound calm, but his pulse thudded fast against my skin. I pulled my arm free and set the phone down beside me. I have already slept on too many things with you. The phrase slipped out and even I heard the extra weight in it. For a second, memories of other brushed-off situations flashed through me. I pushed them aside because right now this one needed all my focus. Tomorrow I am going to her place. I kept my gaze steady so he knew this was not a bluff. You can come with me and fix this yourself or not. My chest felt tight, but the decision sat strangely solid underneath. Either way, I'm not letting that chain stay there. He stared like I had started speaking another language. You show up at her door and you will humiliate me. He jabbed a finger at the floor between us, voice rising now. She will think I cannot even give a present without your approval. Suddenly it was all about his image again, not the damage already done. Your pride is not more important than my boundaries. I took a step backward to keep space between us and breathe. If anyone looks bad here, it is the person who took something secretly. Saying it out loud steadied me more than I expected. For once, he did not have a quick comeback ready. The quiet that followed felt different from earlier in the night. Not comfortable, not peaceful, just heavy like the air thickened around us. Inalai pushed the chair upright with one sharp movement. Fine, you want drama, go start it, I am done talking tonight. He walked past me toward the hallway, leaving his mess in the room. I stayed there a long moment with my hand on the counter. Every sound from the house felt louder than usual, even my own breathing. Part of me still hoped he would turn around and choose better. He did not, and that tiny choice told me more than his words ever could. By the time I turned off the kitchen light, tomorrow was already decided in my head. I knocked on Lily's door harder than I meant to. The sound echoed down the hallway and made me wince instantly. For a second, I thought about turning around and heading home. Then the lock clicked and I knew I had run out of stalling. She swung the door open with a grin already loaded on her face. The chain sat right there on her collarbone, front and center. It caught my eye before I even registered her expression fully. I swear my pulse jumped so fast I felt it in my teeth. Wow, early visit. She stepped back to let me inside, fingers brushing the pendant. I was about to call you for coffee anyway, good timing. Her casual tone scraped against the reason I was there. I walked in and my gaze kept sliding back to that piece. I tried to focus on her, not the metal resting on her skin. Yeah, I had some time before work, figured I would drop by. My voice sounded tight even to me and she tilted her head. You okay? You look like you barely slept. She nudged my arm lightly, playful and curious at the same time. I sat down because my legs felt weirdly unsteady for a morning. I am fine, I wanted to talk about your new jewelry actually. The words landed between us and wiped the ease off her face. Her hand went straight to the pendant again, almost protective. You do not like it anymore, you said last night it was nice. Her shoulders stiffened just enough for me to notice the shift. That little detail told me this was not going to stay friendly. I never said I did not like it. I kept my tone level because I knew she mirrored energy fast. I am wondering where it came from exactly, that is all. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, eyes not leaving her. She blinked once, then gave a small, quick smile that looked rehearsed. From you too, obviously it was a surprise gift from both of you. She said it like the answer should have been obvious from the start. That word both hit me like someone flicked a switch in my head. Walk me through that. I did not raise my volume, I just sharpened it. What did he actually tell you when he gave it to you? My fingers laced together so I would not grab the chain myself. She shifted in her seat and let out a soft, amused breath. Relax, it was sweet, he came over a few days ago. Her eyes unfocused slightly as she replayed it in her mind. He said you had been wanting to pass it on for a while. I felt the floor under me tilt just slightly, but enough. He said what exactly? The words came out slower now because I needed them precise. I already knew I was not going to enjoy the full version. She straightened, almost defensive, cheeks flushing as she spoke. He told me you felt weird wearing something that old. She lifted the pendant like she was showing off a prize. He said you wanted someone in the family to actually use it. There it was. Clean, polished, delivered in his voice through her mouth. I had to stare at the wall behind her for a second to steady myself. It felt like watching my own personality handed back wrong on purpose. So you think this was my idea? I looked at her again and watched doubt flicker, then harden. That I asked him to take it from my room and bring it here. My hands had started to shake and I tucked them under my thighs. She frowned and sat up straighter like she was bracing. He said you literally told him it should go to me. Her fingers stroked the chain once, slower this time, more cautious. That you did not want the responsibility of keeping it anymore. My chest squeezed so tight I had to breathe through my teeth. Do I seem like someone who gives away that kind of thing lightly? I kept my tone cool because anything else would get dismissed as drama. Right then I needed her listening, not rolling her eyes at my reaction. She opened her mouth to answer, then hesitated for a beat. You can be generous when you feel guilty about something. Her eyes flicked away and that tiny dodge told its own story. He had clearly filled in a few extra blanks while he was here. Guilty about what? I heard the crack in my own question and pushed forward anyway. What else did he share when he brought that over? I knew there was more. People rarely tell one edited truth at a time. She crossed one leg over the other, shoulders still tense. Look, I do not want to get in the middle of your arguments. Her voice dropped a little like she was passing along a secret. He mentioned you hardly ever wear anything he gives you. That line burned more than I expected because it sounded rehearsed. And that connects to this how exactly. I watched her study me like she was trying to match us to his version. In that moment, I realized how carefully he had drawn the picture. He framed it like sharing, not stealing. Her fingers tapped the pendant now, restless, not proud anymore. He said it sat hidden away while you focused on other things. She lifted her brows at me, as if waiting for me to admit it. I leaned back and let out a short, humorless laugh. Hidden away in my bedroom where it belongs, not in a pawn shop. That last part slipped out and made her eyes go wide. At least now she looked nervous instead of smug. Come on, that is a bit much. Do you really think I would sell this? She clutched the pendant like I had threatened to rip it off. I raised one hand, trying to keep the situation on track. I am not accusing you of anything like that, I am explaining impact. I forced myself to slow down for one moment and choose carefully. That piece was entrusted directly to me, not put in some community box. I watched the words sink in as she pressed her lips together. You are wearing something that was taken from my space without consent. Her jaw tightened, and for the first time she looked almost cornered. So you did not tell him to give it to me at all. The way she said it told me she already knew the answer. She just needed to hear it out loud so she could pick a side. You know, simple, clear, nothing to hide behind. I did not offer it, I did not discuss it, I did not know. Saying it plainly like that made anger flare brighter under the hurt. She rubbed her temple, then let out a sharp breath. He made it sound like you were being thoughtful, that is the thing. Her voice shook now that the story started to crumble. I felt almost bad accepting it, but he swore it would help you too. I stared at her, stunned that he had even turned my supposed generosity into some kind of emotional project. In what world does me losing something help me? My tone rose despite my effort to stay controlled. I could hear my heartbeat beating time in my ears. He said you felt weighed down by stuff that reminded you of old things. She stumbled over the last words, glancing at my face quickly. He framed it like letting go, like some healing gesture or whatever. There it was again, me cast as unstable and him as the guide. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, hands locked together tight. I have never once told him I wanted to let this go. Each word landed heavy for me, maybe lighter for her, but still. If he said that, he was rewriting my feelings from scratch. She stared at the floor between us with her brows drawn. I mean, he did look uncomfortable when he brought it up. Her voice dropped softer as she replayed it. Like he knew you might explode if you heard about it. That part stung because I could see how convincing he must have looked. Of course he did, that is what happens when you push boundaries quietly. I watched her flinch slightly at the phrase like it hit close. We are not talking about some hoodie, this is something else. She chewed her lip for a second, then lifted her chin. So what happens now, do you want it back immediately? Her hand hovered near the clasp like she was ready to defend it. Behind the nerves, I caught a spark of stubbornness. Yes, I want it back. I did not dress it up, because anything softer would invite negotiation. Today, not whenever he decides the story has changed again. There was no way I was walking out of that apartment empty-handed. She recoiled slightly like I had shoved her. That will crush him, you know how sensitive he is about disappointing people. Her loyalty was showing now, and I could not even blame her for that. What I blamed was the script he had fed her to secure it. I am sure he worries deeply about letting people down. The bitterness slipped through and I stopped trying to hide it. Unfortunately, I am one of those people and I live in the same house. I locked eyes with her, forcing her to include me in that equation. A tense beat passed, then she reached behind her neck slowly. Her fingers paused on the clasp as she stared at me. If I take it off now, this whole thing blows up between you two. Her voice shook more than before, and for a moment she looked younger. It already exploded, you just did not see the mess last night. I swallowed, feeling heat creep up from my collar to my jaw. This is not you and me against him, this is me undoing his lie. Saying it that way made something inside me settle into place. She closed her eyes briefly, then dropped her hands to her lap. I think I need to hear his side before I do anything. She pushed herself up from the couch with a decision in her posture. When he told me the story, it did not sound like theft. The word hung between us like a warning I had not used yet. I stood up as well, heart hammering but steps steady. Call him then, but I am not leaving while that stays on you. We both knew the conversation was about to shift from awkward to dangerous. She glanced toward her phone on the table, then back at me. You are really willing to start a war over this? Her voice had sharpened again, trying to turn the spotlight on me. In that second I realized he had taught her exactly how to question my reactions. I am willing to stand up for myself for once. My throat felt tight, but I did not lower my head. If that registers as war to him, that says more about him than me. Even then, I still hoped she would see where the real problem sat. She picked up her phone with jerky movements and unlocked it. If I involve him now, you know he will feel ambushed. Her thumb hovered over his name, hesitating right at the edge. A part of me almost told her to stop, but that window had passed. Go ahead. The words came out quieter than I expected, almost calm. I would rather hear his lies in real time than through you again. That was the moment I accepted that this was bigger than a stolen heirloom. The call connected before I could change my mind. His voice came through loud on speaker, way too bright for morning. Hey, everything okay? You two sound serious. He laughed under the words like nothing could possibly be wrong. My hands went cold even though the room felt warm. Lily glanced at me once, then lifted the phone closer to her. Quick thing, I want to check something about the necklace. She touched the pendant as if to anchor herself. You told me it was from both of you, right? The pause on the line stretched long enough to sting. When did this suddenly become an interrogation? I heard drawers sliding in the background. He was moving around. Yeah, I brought it over for you from us. Why? His tone sharpened on the last word, aimed straight at me. He already sounded like someone building a defense, not answering. Lily looked from the phone to my face, then back again. Did she ask you to give it to me, like directly? Her fingers had started to tremble against the chain. Because she is sitting here saying she had no idea. The room shrank around that one sentence. He went quiet for a couple of beats, then exhaled hard. Of course she is spinning it that way now. A chair scraped on his end, harsh through the speaker. We talked about maybe passing it on. She knew the plan. That word maybe landed like a new slap. I leaned toward the phone so he could not pretend I was distant. We never agreed on anything about this piece, not once. My voice came out steady, which surprised even me. You removed it from our room while I was gone. I could hear my own pulse rushing in my ears. He laughed again, shorter this time, without any actual humor. You are remembering what matches your mood today, not what happened. He must have leaned closer to his phone, his breath sounded louder. We have had versions of this talk for months, you just forget. The gaslight flicked on so smoothly I almost admired the speed. Lily's brows pulled together as she listened, eyes darting. Did you two really discuss me getting it, or just in theory? Her voice carried more doubt now, less blind trust. I need a straight answer because right now I feel tricked. That word made my chest tighten in a whole new way. We talked about you wanting less pressure around that heirloom. He skipped right over her question and aimed at me again. You said it stressed you out, remember, because of all the history. He let the silence sit, waiting for me to fill it. I realized he counted on my habit of second-guessing myself. I forced myself to answer slowly, one sentence at a time. I said I did not wear it often, that is all. I could hear my own breath steadying between each line. I never asked you to give it away, and you know that. The quiet that followed throbbed like a bruise. On the couch beside me, Lily shifted her weight uneasily. So one of you is lying to me right now. Her voice shook, but she did not back down. I do not love being used as the middle piece in this. Her fingers finally left the chain and tightened around the phone. You are not in the middle, she dragged you into it. He went from smooth to sharp in half a second. I did something thoughtful, now she is rewriting the story again. Paper rustled on his side like he was rifling through something. She does this whenever she gets fixated on control. There it was. The script he had ready for anyone who challenged him. Explain how taking something from my drawer counts as thoughtful. I leaned forward so my words hit the speaker cleanly. And while we are at it, where are the other missing pieces? He hesitated just long enough for me to sense a crack. W. Had other pieces, you are really reaching now. His tone went careful on the first part, harder on the last. If you start tearing apart the whole house, that is on you. That slip told me more than any confession would have. I narrowed my eyes even though he could not see me. So you just admitted there might be others gone. The realization came out before I could filter it. You answered like someone already hiding extra secrets, not one mistake. I watched Lily flinch as that landed. This is exactly what I mean, you twist everything into an accusation. He raised his volume, trying to bulldoze the line of thought. You barely touch half the valuables you own, they just sit there. He let out a sharp breath, clearly losing patience. Why not let someone else enjoy what you hoard? Lily winced at the word hoard, eyes darting to me. So you took more than just this chain. Her voice dropped, almost a whisper, like she worried about the answer. She looked at me as if I could somehow make it better. I did not have that kind of magic left. I swallowed and kept my focus on the phone. We will go through everything when I get home, one by one. My jaw ached from how tightly I was clenching it. If there is more missing, I'm not letting it slide. In that moment, I knew this fight had crossed some invisible line. Are you threatening to search our place like a cop? His laugh came back louder, almost mocking now. Go ahead, turn the bedroom upside down, scare yourself silly. He was trying to paint me as unhinged again, same tactic. Only this time there was another witness listening. Lily pressed the speaker button off, leaving him mid-breath. I need a break from hearing him through this thing. She set the phone face down between us, hands shaking openly. I honestly do not know who to believe right now. That sentence cut deeper than anything he had thrown. I get that this looks chaotic from your angle. I try to keep my tone low, not pleading, just clear. But my drawer was closed and my consent was never asked. I pointed at the pendant resting on her chest. Whatever story he sold, this fact does not change. She stared at the chain for a long second, then stood. I do not want to be wrapped in this argument anymore. Her fingers moved behind her neck, fumbling at the clasp. This was supposed to make me feel loved, not guilty. The small sound of the chain coming loose hit me harder than expected. She walked over and placed it in my open palm. Her hand lingered for half a heartbeat, then pulled away. I am giving it back until you two figure yourselves out. Her eyes looked tired, older than yesterday by a lot. For now, I am stepping out of this whole thing. The metal felt heavier than it ever had in my hand. Not physically, but in the way my stomach lurched around it. Thank you for at least hearing me out today. It came out quieter than I intended, but honest. Even in that small win, I knew something between us had cracked. She walked me to the door without another hug. At the threshold, she spoke again, voice tight around the edges. Please do not use my name in whatever happens next. She glanced back at the phone, still face down on the couch. I am already in too deep for my taste. I nodded once and stepped into the hallway. The door closed behind me with a soft final click. My fingers closed around the pendant until the edges dug in. I stayed there a moment, breathing through the buzzing in my ears. I knew the ride home was not going to calm me down. Back at the house, I dropped my keys on the entry table. The necklace stayed in my fist like a small piece of evidence. The silence felt unfriendly in a way I had not noticed before. I walked straight to the bedroom without taking off my shoes. I already knew where I needed to look next. I opened the closet and went straight for the small safe. My hands moved on their own, punching in the code. The door swung open and I scanned the shelves quickly. At first, nothing obvious jumped out at me. Then my gaze stuck on an empty spot that should not exist. There was a little space where a ring box usually sat. I checked the floor, then the back of the shelf, then my pockets. Nothing. That box did not walk away on its own. A numb feeling started spreading up my arms. I checked the next row, lips moving as I counted items. One by one, my mental list refused to match the reality. A bracelet I kept tucked in a corner was missing too. Another small case I never brought out was just gone. I felt like someone had scooped out parts of my life. I pulled everything else out and lined it on the bed. I counted again, slower, forcing my brain to stay clear. Each gap in the pattern hit like a separate hit. I stopped at 3 missing things and sat down heavily. There was no way to label this as forgetfulness anymore. I grabbed my phone and opened our banking app. My heart hammered as the transactions loaded on the screen. Down the list, one deposit I did not recognize jumped out. A chunk of money from a resale platform appeared last week. Right below it, a withdrawal that emptied almost the same amount. My mouth went dry while I stared at the numbers. I scrolled further, hunting for more little red flags. There were smaller deposits too, spread out over a couple months. Enough to suggest this was not a one-time lapse. It looked suspiciously like a side job I never agreed to. I snapped pictures of the transaction history, my hands unsteady. Then I took a photo of the open safe with the gaps. I did not even fully know why, I just knew I needed proof. My chest ached, but my head felt clearer with every click. It was like documenting a scene before someone tried to clean it. The front door opened while I still sat on the edge of the bed. Footsteps moved through the hallway, slower than usual. He stopped in the doorway and spotted the safe door wide open. His eyes flicked from the shelves to the items laid out. For a second, real surprise flashed across his face. "What are you doing? Why is everything dragged out like that?" He stepped inside cautiously, as if approaching a wild animal. I held up my phone with the transaction page visible. "Looking for the rest of what you sold behind my back." My voice came out flat and strong, not shaking this time. He blinked, then scoffed, chin tipping up defensively. "You really went full detective today, huh?" He glanced over the half-empty shelf and shrugged. I moved a couple of things around, nothing dramatic. The casual tone scraped every nerve I had left. I pointed at the empty spaces on the shelf, one by one. Ring box gone, bracelet gone, small case gone. Each word felt like another nail in something breaking between us. Then this deposit from a resale site that matches the timing. His face tightened as the pattern laid itself out. "You are seriously accusing your husband of robbing you?" His jaw clenched hard enough to make a small muscle jump. "I used a few unused items to cover expenses, that is all." He gestured vaguely toward the rest of the house. "Everything I do is to keep us afloat, and you know it. If you wanted to cover expenses, you could have discussed it." I forced myself to stay seated so I would not pace. "You did not discuss, you took, then lied, then spun a story." My throat burned, but my words stayed measured. "That is not partnership, that is exploitation." He laughed once, loud and ugly, in the small room. "There it is, you always leap straight to the harshest word." He folded his arms, trying to stare me down. "I sold a couple of trinkets you never touched." He completely ignored the part where he forged my version to others. "Stop calling them trinkets, like that softens what you did." Heat surged up my spine as I stood, finally done sitting. "Those items were entrusted to me specifically, not given as play money." I lifted the necklace between two fingers so he could see it. "Same with this, which you handed out like a party favor." His eyes flicked to the chain, then narrowed. "So she gave it back already?" "Of course she did." He rubbed his face with both hands in frustration. "Let me guess, you cried, then turned her against me too." There it was again, the weaponized version of my emotions. I did not cry. The fact that I had to say it out loud stung. I laid out the facts and she connected her own dots. I tucked the chain into my pocket, away from his reach. "You might want to ask yourself why your stories collapse under daylight." He stepped closer, voice dropping into that dangerous soft range. "You are blowing up our life over a few bits of metal." His hand sliced the air between us as he talked. "Do you hear how shallow that sounds when bills need paying?" His eyes shone with something between anger and disbelief. "This is not about metal, it is about trust and consent." I matched his volume but kept my tone sharper. "You lied to me, then to your sister, then to yourself about it." I gestured toward the safe, the bed, the screenshots. "That is more expensive than anything you sold." He shook his head hard, like he could fling the words off. "You want everything your way, or you threaten nuclear options." He paced a short, jagged line at the foot of the bed. "You love your precious heirlooms more than you love compromise." The phrase landed heavy, and I realized he believed it. "Fine, let us talk about options then." I drew in a slow breath until the edges of my vision steadied. "Here is what happens next, and I am not negotiating this." He stopped pacing when he heard that tone, eyes locking on mine. That was the first time he seemed unsure of the outcome. "Tomorrow you schedule a couples therapist and I find an attorney." I spoke each part clearly, like reading from a list. "We catalog every item in this safe together with photos." I picked up. My phone again, the screen still on the bank app. You also tell me exactly where each missing piece went. He stared at me like I had suddenly become a stranger. You are threatening lawyers over your own spouse, this is wild. He laughed, but there was no real confidence behind it. Do you have any idea how unhinged that sounds to anyone else? Shame tried to creep in, but anger held the door this time. It sounds like boundary setting to people who respect property lines. My voice stayed steady even as my palms dampened. If you ignored that respect, then yes, lawyers get involved. I let the word hang there long enough to sink in properly. I am done hoping you grow a conscience on your own. He pointed at the open safe with a jerky motion. You are obsessed with stuff, admit it, this is about greed. His cheeks had flushed and his breathing had sped up. You would rather drag strangers into our marriage than forgive me. That twist almost worked on me, almost. I took one step closer, stopping just out of his reach. I would rather involve professionals than stay quiet and resentful. My chest felt tight, but my spine stayed straight. This is the last time I discover missing things by accident. Saying it out loud snapped something loose inside me. He stared, waiting for me to back off like I usually did. When I did not, something in his own expression hardened. So what, you want me gone now, is that the goal? His arms dropped to his sides, hands curling slightly. The question hung there, heavy and almost hopeful. I want honesty and repair, if that is even possible now. I let out a breath I did not realize I was holding. If you refuse, then yes, you should start looking for another place. The words shocked both of us with how simply they landed. For the first time, I watched him actually register that I might mean it. By Monday morning, I was sitting across from a badge. My hands rested on the edge of the desk so he would not see them tremble. The report form stared back at me with all those little blank lines. Start from the beginning, he said, pen ready. I picked a different beginning than the one with the wedding. I slid my phone over with the photos first. Open safe, empty spots, transaction screenshots, the necklace in my palm. I did not misplace these, I heard myself say, steady and cold. He removed them and sold some without telling me. Saying it that plain made my stomach twist anyway. He studied each picture for a long moment, no rush. This is someone you live with, he asked, checking the form. He already knew the answer, but protocol needed the words. Yes, my spouse, and no, I am not exaggerating this. If anything, I felt like I still watered it down. He asked about dates, values, who had access to the safe. I explained the code, the missing items, the fabricated story around the necklace. Every time I almost softened something, I caught myself and reset. Have there been any threats? He asked next, looking up sharply. Not physical ones, I answered, just pressure and a lot of lies. He tapped his pen on the desk twice, thinking. Because you share a residence, it gets messy in court. His tone stayed neutral, not dismissive, just realistic. But you can still record a complaint and document all this. That word document felt like a life raft to me. Will anyone actually do anything? I asked, before I could stop myself. He leaned back, arms crossing lightly as he weighed the question. If we see clear evidence of property being sold without consent, yes. He pushed the paperwork toward me with one finger. And this gives you a paper trail if it escalates. I wrote my signature where he pointed, hand finally steady. While the printer whirred, he met my eyes again. Where is the necklace now? He asked, flipping to the last page. In my pocket, I answered, touching it through the fabric. For now, I want it recorded, not back on display. He nodded once and reached for a small camera. Let us get a few shots while you are here. He photographed the chain, the clasp, the pendant, my written statement. It all looked strangely small through that lens. Small but real, which is what I needed. When I stepped out of the station, my phone buzzed. A string of messages from him, all variations on the same theme. Can we talk without you running to strangers? Please stop making everything public. I ignored them and opened a ride app instead. Back home, I did not pause in the doorway this time. I headed straight for the bedroom with one goal. Every piece still inside that safe came out one by one. I laid them on the bed and took clear photos from different angles. It felt like inventorying memories before a storm. Once I finished, I opened a fresh email draft. Subject line property list, copy to myself and a new attorney contact. I attached each image and labeled them with rough values. Then I typed one sentence. See at the bottom. If anything else disappears, I will update this file in my report. The front door opened while I was still hitting send. He walked in carrying a grocery bag like it was any afternoon. His eyes landed on the items spread behind me. So this is your new hobby, he muttered, dropping the bag. Turning our bedroom into evidence. You already know I spoke with the police. I stood up from the desk and faced him fully. They logged the missing items and took photos of the necklace. I watched his posture shift from cocky to rattled. That tiny change told me I had finally hit something he cared about. You actually filed, are you out of your mind? He stepped closer, hands opening and closing at his sides. Do you want me arrested? Is that the fantasy here? His laugh came out sharp and uneven this time. You really want my record stained over this nonsense? I want consequences that are not just me crying in our kitchen. The words left my mouth before I could polish them. If you keep crossing lines, someone besides me needs to say stop. I moved to the dresser and opened a drawer deliberately. Inside, a stack of folded shirts waited for step 2. I pulled out the first shirt and dropped it into a cardboard box. Then another, building a rhythm that calmed me. He watched for a few seconds, stunned into silence. What are you doing? He finally asked, voice low. Helping you with that new place you might need. You cannot be serious, we had one bad weekend. He grabbed at a pile of clothes before I could. You are not throwing me out over some jewelry and old stuff. His eyes shone, more furious than sad. You are punishing me instead of working with me. Working with you would have started before the lying and selling. I lifted a stack of pants and set them in another box. If you want to stay, you schedule therapy and undo what you can. I nodded toward the safe, then his phone. And you show me proof, not more speeches. He dragged his fingers through his hair, pacing in a short line. What if I bring back what is left? Would that fix it? The question slipped out fast, like he regretted it instantly. Are we really going to split over items I barely remember? I heard the panic under the anger and forced myself not to flinch. You cannot bring back what you already sold, and we both know it. I sealed one box with tape, pressing hard along the seam. This is not about perfectly resetting the board. I stacked the box against the wall by the door. It is about showing me what kind of partner you actually want to be. For a second, he just stood there breathing hard. Then his shoulders dropped and the fight drained a notch. What did the officer say? He asked, quieter now. He sounded less like someone furious, more like someone measuring risk. That shift told me the reality finally landed. He said shared homes complicate things, but documentation counts. I kept my tone factual, not triumphant. If this continues, they will have a file to pull from. I watched his eyes flick toward the hallway as if expecting sirens. They know your name now and they know mine. He sank down on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. For the first time since this started, he looked genuinely shaken. I never thought you would go that far, he whispered. It sounded less like judgment and more like disbelief. Honestly, I surprised myself too. Neither did I answered, and that part was true. But every time I gave you the benefit of the doubt, you pushed further. I grabbed another box and slid it near his feet. You have a choice, therapy and hard honesty, or you pack. Silence sat between us like a third person listening. He did not reach for the box. Instead, he reached for my wrist, much gentler than before. I do not want to lose our life over this spiral. His eyes looked wet and he blinked hard to clear them. Tell me what it would take to fix us. For a second, I almost caved. That is the part I am not proud of now. I imagined pretending the report never happened, closing the safe, letting it ride. Then I pictured the empty spaces inside it growing over time. That image hit me harder than his voice ever could. It is not just about fixing us, it is about fixing you. I pulled my arm back and folded both hands together. You need to figure out why you felt entitled to my things. I shook my head slowly when he opened his mouth. I cannot do that work for you, and I will not absorb the cost. The sound of my phone vibrating cut through the tension. A number from the station flashed on the screen. I answered on speaker before he could object. Just a quick update, the officer said, calm and firm. We spoke with your in-law and documented her side. My heart jumped into my throat. Did she still have anything connected to this? I asked. Just her statement about how she received the necklace, he replied. We noted the conflicting stories in your file, which could matter later. I thanked him and ended the call, feeling his stare on me. So you dragged my family into this circus too, he snapped. He stood again, agitated energy back in full force. Do you know how humiliated I am right now? His hand hit the closet door hard enough to rattle it. You turned a private disagreement into an official investigation. You turned it into evidence when you lied to both of us. I stayed where I was, refusing to shrink this time. I am done covering for you while you raid what belongs to me. My voice stayed surprisingly calm, like the decision had already landed. Embarrassment is not the same as injustice, no matter how loud you shout. He stared at the boxes, the safe, then finally at me. Are you really telling me to leave? He asked. No yelling now, just a raw, flat question. It hit me that he could not imagine me finishing this move. That realization actually made the answer easier. I am telling you to stay somewhere else while you decide who you want to be. The words tasted strange but right. I will work with a lawyer on the financial mess you created. I picked up his keys from the dresser and placed them on a box. And until we have something on paper, this house stays my responsibility. He looked at the keys like they were a verdict. I have nowhere lined up, he said weakly. You have friends, coworkers, options I do not know about, I replied. I had nowhere safe inside my own home, and you were fine with that. His eyes closed briefly as that truth landed. He packed slower than I expected. Shoes, shirts, a few framed photos, he claimed without asking. I did not argue over any of it, not today. Every so often he glanced at me, like waiting for me to call it off. I did not, and that silence said more than another speech. When he finally rolled the suitcase to the front door, he paused. You are throwing away a marriage over property. The line came out tired, not vicious this time. Years together, undone by one mistake and a few sales. I almost laughed at the word one. I am ending a situation where I cannot trust the person beside me. I kept my hands at my sides so I would not reach for him. That started with property, but it does not end there. I opened the door and stepped back, giving him space. You chose to gamble my trust without asking. This is the payout. He lingered on the threshold a second longer. If you change your mind, you know my number, he said. It sounded more like habit than hope. I just nodded once, not promising anything. Then he walked out, pulling the suitcase behind him. The moment the door shut, my legs nearly gave out. I slid down against the wall and finally let myself shake. There were no cameras, no witnesses, just me and a quiet house. Part of me wanted to run after him and undo everything. The rest of me stayed seated, holding that necklace in my fist. Later that week, a locksmith swapped out the old deadbolt. I watched each screw fall into his pocket like tiny points of no return. When he finished, he held out the new keys. Anyone else need a copy? He asked. Not right now, I answered and meant it. That night I opened the safe one more time. I laid the necklace inside a small pouch and set it in the center. No dramatic speech, no whispered promise into the dark. Just a quiet nod to myself that this was staying here on my terms. Then I closed the door and spun the dial, finally choosing me.